Well, Beijing has shown no appetite to remove sanctions on $20 billion worth of Australian exports, despite repeated calls from the Prime Minister for China to do so, saying it's damaging both countries' economies. Joining us live now is the chair of the Liberal Party's Defence and National Security Policy Branch, Lincoln Park. You're over in DC at the moment. How is DC? How's DC this afternoon, your time?
Yeah, indeed. Good afternoon, Pete. And DC is rainy and humid.
Oh, okay. Just onto this point now. China is defending its actions. It says it's legitimate. It says it's lawful. It says it's beyond reproach. So at the moment, it doesn't appear to be any change, does it?
Well, those were the words that Wang Wenbin used in description of the sanctions on $20 billion worth of our goods and services. But they're in complete contravention to the rules of the World Trade Organization. Now, let's remember that China was never a member of the WTO and only became a member of the WTO underneath the presidency of Bill Clinton. So there may be a discussion to be had with the United States and Europeans and others to say, well, does China really still belong in the WTO, considering that they slap sanctions on any country that goes against its will or tries to stand up for itself?
Well, China says its sanctions are within the WTO rules because China says it's acting within its own interests. I mean, is there any truth to that statement?
Well, it's acting within its own political and military interests, of course, but it's not abiding by the trade rules. And it's not acting within the globe's interest whatsoever. And we saw last week that, President Xi just came out and called the Taiwan Straits now China national territory, for instance. So, we can't really believe a single word that comes out of the mouths of the Chinese Communist Party whatsoever. And we really ought to be taking a look as, the free world and the democracies of the world as whether we think that China should be a member of the WTO whatsoever.
We had seen perhaps a softening of language when it comes to the new Albanese government, when it comes to the Chinese government in recent weeks, although those recent statements wouldn't suggest that it has been. But going forward, does the status quo change here?
I don't think so. And everybody tries to frame it as if it's Australia's fault somehow and that we have some sort of self-hatred about Australia, when in fact we're not the ones that slapped $20 billion worth of tariffs on and sanctions on anybody. They're the ones that are doing it to us. And I think the Prime Minister is quite right to say, look, we're not changing anything. We're good, decent, law-abiding folks. So you change.
Yeah. So on that front, I mean, they're not going to change and we won't change our position. So the story continues.
Well, no, I think we decouple. And I think that's what a lot of countries, including the United States and certainly some European countries, are looking to decouple and find other markets for our goods and services so that we don't keep getting treated like.
Well, that's what we're doing. Meanwhile, just a quick one here, Lincoln. Australia's going to skip ASEAN next month because it's co-chaired by Myanmar and Russia. Your thoughts on that? The right move?
No, I don't think so. I understand why the government is potentially looking at doing that, but I think engagement in person is always better than not turning up at all. And so that you can get your point across, you can say this is Australia's position and you can do it eye to eye.
But aren't you sending a bigger message, though, by boycotting, basically?
Look, I mean, maybe that's what the Prime Minister and the government thinks, but, I disagree. We know as Australians, we front up to people, we look them in the face and in the eye and shake their hands or don't shake their hands and tell them what we feel.
Okay. Lincoln, when you're back, how long are you there for?
Mate, I'll be back next Monday, so unfortunately I'll be on the flight when the Blues beat Queensland.
Oh, yeah.
But in the meantime, in the bar of the Hamilton here hotel, so it's pure o'clock, mate.
You might need to stay in that bar if the New South Wales Blues lose, or another bar over here. Thanks, Lincoln. Talk to you soon.